I'll say if you want to talk a little monsters, because I like, so Richard, like House of a Thousand Corpses, the Devil's Rejects. I went and saw Devil's Rejects. Like, this is probably like a lot of people are like, oh my God, you're a psychopath. Because I went and saw it like twice the same day. Like opening day, I went and saw it because that was the peak of my like horror obsession. And Rob Zombie is like, I am the new god of horror movies. House of a Thousand Corpses was creepy.
You want to talk Rob Zombie? I think that if Rob Zombie would have done this fucking, I don't understand why they didn't ask Rob Zombie to do this fucking Werewolf by Night.
Well, he's kind of, I think since like the Devil's Rejects movies, and well, then he did Halloween, which I thought was good. But the Halloween 2 he made, like he was just basically like, this isn't what I want to do, but I'll do it. And ever since then, like none of his movies I feel like have hit. And then like they do this Munsters thing, which apparently he wanted to do in black and white, and they said no.
Yeah, Lords of Salem didn't really do it for me. That Three from Hell didn't really do it for me either.
Yeah, because that was supposed to be like the third in the trilogy. And
I don't know what they were. I don't know what. I don't know. I don't know what it was going for. Honestly, if you're asking me what my favorite is not Devil's Rejects. It's House of a Thousand Corpses.
I like it. Yeah, it's
loved
creepy.
House of a Thousand Corpses. Because it's gory and it's campy and it's and it's a little creepy and there's stuff that doesn't get explained and that's cool. Like,
well, it's very like 80s slasher, and it kind of like brought that back a little bit, even though it was like early 2000. Because right behind it was a lot of the Eli Roth stuff. And I don't know if they just take themselves too serious and they try to get too artistic with everything, or like
I don't think it's too I don't think that it's like an artistic thing. Like, I don't know. Like I don't hate Devil's Rejects. I totally get what he was going for, and I'm fine. I mean I like the movie. Like, I liked it. I mean, side by side comparison, House of a Thousand Corpses is more like to my taste.
Yeah,
my personal taste.
When that came out, you had read an interview because you told me about this, where he was essentially trying to make these like Bugs Bunny characters where they're the same characters, but you can pluck them out of this story and put them in this story, and you can just go
right. Yeah, it's a totally different, like feel. It's a totally, like Devil's Rejects is a completely different movie. But just like personal taste wise, I like House of a Thousand Corpses more. But yeah, like everything past Devil's Rejects, like I just was like, even his Halloween remake, like it was okay. It wasn't scratching that itch. Yeah, I feel like he has a very specific vision, and I think that I don't know if it's that he easily compromises it. None of his movies since have felt like House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yeah, I really like the Halloween one. I really want to go back and watch it again. Halloween 2 was rough that he did because it just it felt very disjointed.
Lords of Salem felt very disjointed. 31, no, that wasn't doing it for me either. So
yeah,
now
those have all kind of been like game day ones that have popped up, and just kind of watched them on like peripherally. Like nothing's piqued my interest in those.
And now we come to the Munsters, and I get what he was going for. He wanted to shoot it like a prequel to the show, basically, which is fine. I understood the story. I understood what he was trying to do from a plot standpoint. But I think that stylistically and visually, it was just off. The whole thing's in color, which I did not like. because it made the whole thing feel like with it in color, you could see the okay, so when you look at like older horror movies from like the 40s and stuff like that, and it's a lot of like they're in a dungeon and there's skeletons chained to the wall, and there's a big coffin and a big spooky haunted house. In black and white, that stuff kind of plays a little more to the aesthetic that you're trying to get, but in color it just looks goofy.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And that's the problem I had with the show. Like with the movie is I understand that it's the monsters and it's not supposed to be scary, but it's not supposed to look goofy either.
Yeah.
Someone told me that the monsters, the actual house that they use to film the monsters, is painted pink because it shows up better because of the way it shows up on black and white.
Yeah.
So if you were to colorize, the monsters, then the whole house would be like pale pink. Like if you colorized an actual episode of the television show. And that's what this feels like. This feels like you colorize something that shouldn't be colorized. And it just makes everything look cheap and goofy.
Is the story any good at all?
I mean, it's understandable. It's the plot you would get. It's a plot that makes sense for what the Munsters is. Like the Munsters, a television show about a creepy family that's blissfully unaware that they're a creepy family.
How's Sherry Moon Zombie doing it? Because like she's like House of a Thousand Corpses. Like I fell in love with her. If she wasn't married to Rob Zombie, that would have been like the woman I would have tried to marry.
I mean, she understood the assignment. Like you could tell, like she's watched every single episode of the Munsters and plays Lily.
I'm really curious, like what she's like in real life.
Like, man,
I just don't like. I can see her being like the coolest person in the world. I could also see her as just being like somebody who's not there.
I think that he'll probably if you take that movie and you black and white it and throw laugh tracks in, just like the television, if you do it more like the television show aesthetically, I think that the whole movie kind of will click together a bit better.
Okay. I get that. Kind of lean into the campiness of it too.
Exactly.
Which he's like I said,
there's a reason that people watch that show for a specific reason.
Yeah.
And then when you take those elements away and try and do it similar, you're like, like 50 years have passed. You can do this better.
Oh, and especially since there's so much nostalgia going on right now, if you put that just very 50s style, like, yeah, I bet people lean into it hard. And I don't know if they own the Munsters TV series rights, but you put that up right after, and you got eyeballs on it all day. But
they made like 2 or 3 Brady Bunch movies, and they weren't bad.
Yeah, oh yeah, good point. And those were very like leaning into like this ditzy 70s family in the now times.
Exactly.
That's a good point. That's how they should have done it.
Just do that. Like, why couldn't why not just do that and make it the Munsters?
Yeah, make the Munsters in 2023.
Yeah. Why not?
That. Well, we talked about a lot of eyeballs on that show. My story is a lot of eyeballs in the woods that I found for this year's Brolloween. I went down a rabbit hole for something, and I found something else that I had no idea existed. But I'm ready for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're going to tell me all about it. I made it a point. I tried to find things close to your house, especially now that you're in the boonies.
Yeah, I'm in the woods.
Yeah. So.
Oh shit! My story takes place in the woods. I want to be double scared.
Yeah. You gave yourself things to worry about, and I'm gonna give you things to worry about.
Well, let's get on with it.
Yeah, let's get on with it. Operation Scare Shawn in 3, 2. What's up, everybody? I'm Richard.
And I'm Shawn.
And we're speaking the language of making Shawn pee his pants.
Oh, it's Brolloween, Richard.
Otherwise known as Bromance.
I think this is the 9th time we've done this. So every year, right before Halloween, we get together, we drink some pumpkin spice coffee, we drink some hard apple cider, we drink some regular cider, and you try to scare the socks off me, but Richard, tricks on you, I'm not wearing any socks.
Or pants.
Yeah.
Don't stand up.
Richard, I'm going to scare you. Look!
It worked! Oh, can't unsee that. I mean, no, I don't want to kink shame you, but I think you should see a doctor.
Well, I know I've only got one story, and I'm not sure how many you have, but I really want to start with what you have, because I know you dug really hard into try to scare me, and every year you do a really good job of it. So I want to know what you've got for this year's Brolloween.
Okay, so
Shawn, the house you live in, I have found and confirmed there's been 38 murders in it. The last one happened 6 months ago. Wait a second.
So
I lived here 6 months ago.
Is, like I said, I was trying to look for things close to your house. I did spend some time looking into. So okay, a bit of a funny thing before so I was trying to look into.
I was in your house.
I was like, I wonder if there's like stories of like weird ass cults, like by Shawn's house, you know, or at least in the area. And so I was looking. So I actually at one point I just Googled cults in, you know, and it came up. It legit went to a Yelp page listing a bunch of different like religious organizations, like Church of Scientology, the Church of, you know, yada yada whatever, and they had like Yelp reviews on it.
Nice. So good news.
And you know what? You know what the top Yelp review on every single one had? It started with, "We are not a cult."
You're like, so good news. We've joined the not cult of bromance.
Nobody was naked.
Yeah, I always feel weird, like, whenever we do this,
Very
too. Like,
disappointed. 2 stars.
You have to be careful what you start Googling, because I feel like anything you Google, you almost get on a list.
But I'm like, who leaves a Yelp review?
Yeah, because you're like, well, you say you're not a cult. I wasn't thinking it, but now I am. So this is really suspicious.
Like Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, who leaves a Yelp review for Jehovah's Witnesses? You know what I mean?
That's a good point.
It was like, why do they have Yelp reviews?
They used to have
like,
visions.
Does somebody legit hop on and they're like, you know what? Before I join this, you know, Church of Bromance, I'm going to look at the Yelp reviews.
You know, that's a good point. Like, I know some people really look hard at, like, reviews on things. I don't, because I assume that everybody's lying or they're just, like, really hateful about stuff in life.
I mean, granted, but if you're choosing religion based on a Yelp review, like, what has gone wrong in your life? Like, what cognitive dissonance are you holding on? You know, you're like, well, I was gonna join, but then I saw they only had a 2-star rating. So
I was looking for a cult, and they said they're not one on their Yelp review, so I'm out.
So yeah, Did not find anything on cults. I did find quite a bit of material on the satanic panic in your area.
Ooh.
So apparently
going on right now or in the past?
No, like in the 80s there was a big scare. There was apparently a lot of cases of people being sacrificed and mutilated with no evidence to back it up.
No, I heard from a person that knew a guy that had a brother that had a cousin that had an uncle with a sister that was 3 counties over that lost a cow to it. And then
they were a bunch of kids playing Dungeons and Dragons, and then
that's where they found it because their neighbor had a cousin whose dog was sacrificed. So
and they were listening to Poison.
Yeah. Ugh. Could you imagine like a worse band to be sacrificed to or by?
They were listening to Skid Row, and then that just made them, combine that with a couple D20s, and they're out, just,
you're laying there and
livestock in the name of the Dark Lord.
Yeah, you're laying there getting ready to be sacrificed, and on the radio all you hear is every rose has its thorn.
But apparently Satanic Panic had reached such a fervor pitch in your area, Shawn, that the state legislature actually passed laws on the state murder statutes to include it being a crime to be murdered as part of a ritual and or ceremony.
Yeah, is that a way to get around like a religious exemption? Because that's always like something you hear is like, well, I'm going to start my own religion where I can sacrifice people or sacrifice animals. And you're like, well, that's animal cruelty. Like, there's laws against that. Nope, against my religion. Is that a way they try to get around that?
Your state legislature in 1980, 1980 passed 2 laws to amend murder statutes to make sure that if you sacrifice somebody in the name of Beelzebub, you're going to jail. So
that seems okay.
I think those laws are still on the books too. So
did they say specifically Beelzebub, or did they just say any deity or demon?
I think it said any. So keep that in mind the next time you're listening to Winger.
Or
next time you got that Monsters of Rock
Devil
CD blaring, you'd be like, "Oh, better keep this on the low key.
Better cross over to Illinois. It's legal here." Is Illinois? I mean, I'd assume because why did they put? Was it all just the Satanic Panic? Is why they put it on there, or like were they concerned that somebody could get around like an actual murder charge because of that? Like if I go over to Illinois and sacrifice like a hobo to the spaghetti monster in the sky, like is that not like, can I not be charged for murder because of that? Because it's like no, it's part of my religion. And,
I don't know.
Mind wants to know.
Let's see. So instead, what I found was the story of Robert A. Berdella.
A Berdella of blood.
Yeah, he was a serial killer that lived in your area, Shawn.
Oh, great. Is he still alive or is he dead?
He did die.
What's his name?
Bedella. Bedella. He was convicted of killing 6 men from 1984 to 1987.
All right, so he murdered how many people? 26 people?
6 people. He injected them with drugs and tortured his victims. Creepy thing is, Shawn, is all 6 of those bodies never found.
Uh-oh.
So they could be like in your yard. They could be in your backyard, Shawn. You got some woods near there. It'd be easy to, just dig a hole and throw a body in. You ever worry about that? Do you worry about like going around and then just finding a body on the side of the road?
We talked about that like last year, I think, when I moved out here. It's like, like there's so many places you could just like dig a shallow grave, toss a body, because nobody walks around back there.
Right?
And I wonder at like what point, like,
Did you say that like while you're out on a walk with your wife?
Yeah.
Be like, for example, I could just beat you over the head with this log right now and bury you in a shallow grave, and no one would ever know.
We walk out there and it's dark and it's nighttime. She's like, I'm scared. I'm like, you're scared. I'm gonna have to walk out of here alone. Wait, what? Whack. No, but like, and I always wonder too, like, what's at what point does a statute, like, do you have to worry about, like, you live in a house for like, let's say 20 years. And then for some reason, somebody goes in your crawl space and like, there's 15 bodies here. And then they arrest you because it's your house. You've been there for 20 years, but it's a 50-year-old house and they find the bodies that have been there for like longer than you've been there kind of thing. And like, but you've lived in a house for 20
like in that
years.
case, yeah, I don't know. Or for example, let's say you're on a walk and you see this, weird, you're on a walk and you look over off the side of the trail and you see this weird kind of like leaf pile, and then you move it around and boom, there's a body. What's the first thing police are going to be like? Did you found it? Or is it yours? Did you do it?
Yeah. Where were you? I was walking. Where? Around this leaf pile. Oh, damn it. Listen, I know this looks suspicious.
Around this body that I buried?
Like, no, I just got done. Like, why is there dirt in your hands? Like, why just buried a body down that? Oh, shit.
You did this on purpose. You're trying. This is entrapment. Entrapment, you just told us.
Yeah, like, so this took place in the 80s, right?
Yes, 84 to 87. He injected them with drugs and tortured his victims. The bodies of the 6 men were never found. So I guess that's what I'm saying, Shawn, is there's a very strong possibility that there could be a body buried in your yard.
Could be. So where's this guy
possible. From? Near Kansas City.
Okay. It'd be a long ways for him to get here, but he could have.
That's where you dump a body. You dump a body far away.
That's true.
Not far away, but, enough that you could dump it and then get back and no one would be the wiser. But far enough away that nobody thinks that you're involved.
Yeah.
See, you're in the prime, like, body dumping area, body dumping spot.
That's true.
And you're out in the boonies, so it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before people find a body in your yard and then you're accused of murder.
Yeah, there could be piles of bodies back there that nobody knows about.
In 88, a victim that he was keeping prisoner escaped from his house, and that's how he was arrested.
That's like, it's scary to think that, like, it took somebody escaping for him to get caught.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. He died in 1992 from a heart attack in prison. And they buried him in your backyard.
I think I've heard about this guy before.
Why? Because you bought a house from him?
Yeah. This used to be his house. This was called the Burdella Murder House. I don't know why. I thought maybe
it was a cool name, like Ravenwood.
It sounded metal. I was like, hey, maybe this is where somebody wrote a cool metal album.
Yeah. That old metal band, Burdella.
They always said old Bob was a weird dude.
Like everybody called it the Burdella of Blood, and I was like, that's fucking rad.
There's always weird moans coming from the closets. It was kind of like, at first it was weird, but then it was kind of like a white noise, and I slept really well.
Yeah, I was fine with it.
No, and it's always interesting too. Like it seems like this time frame in like the 80s, like the late 70s to the 80s, is when all like, because like we don't really hear many serial killers from the 90s or the 2000s, right?
Also, statistically, apparently, in terms of serial killers per capita, Missouri is 5th.
Really?
Yeah.
In terms of like known or like active, or
I think it goes by active.
So like active right now, it's got the 5th most serial killers.
Apparently, yes, per capita.
I mean, can kind of see that with St. Louis and Kansas City being the bigger cities, and it's got a highway right there, like a big main highway.
Yeah, you got a couple big highways.
Mm-hmm. Who's number one?
I think it's actually like it's a very like lowly populated state. I think it's like Wyoming or Nebraska, one of the two.
Oh,
I want to say Wyoming because like if there's one, then like per capita, it's like, oh, it's one for every like 150,000 people.
True. But isn't it like they statistically think like active serial killers at one time, like 22 or something like that, or 30?
Maybe. I do not know.
Yeah, I remember some stat that was kind of concerning, but again, like there's that many, but when's the last time you've heard of somebody that like was caught that was like that? That was like a big story.
Does that mean that they're more careful?
Well, I don't know if it's we're more careful. Are they not talking about it as much? Are they not using that word? Because like last year, I don't think it's that they're not talking about it. Because I think that if there was a story about a guy that had, like 10 bodies buried in his basement, I think that would be like all over the place. Yeah, but you say that, but last year there was a story that just kind of broke that was, a couple hours south of where I am. And it was a guy who was arrested, and supposedly that's what they found in his freezers was like stuff like that. Yeah. And I have not heard a peep about it since. How close was it? A couple hours south. See, and you're surprised when I say that you're the fifth highest? Well, I mean, but then again, like that story's not. It should be a national story. And everything, like, because I kind of started looking it up today again to be like, well, what's happening with this thing? Apparently not where you live. I know. Well, so there's serial killers and bodies in your serial killers running around up and down your street. There's don't bodies they say like buried in your grass? Don't they say like the odds of being a serial killer and a podcaster are pretty high? Like the correlation's pretty high. I think you're right. Okay. Which is weird because you would think that they wouldn't because they'd be like, well, it's like that time I wore a guy's head as a hat. Shawn, you're wearing your Bob hat today. Oh, sorry. We're not recording yet, are we? It's all parody, folks. All parody. It's not parody. I'm gonna go eat somebody's leg now. Nom, 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 nom. Oh man, I'm so full. But no, like they treat like so. So one of my friends was telling me about that lives around here that like he lives next door to a cop, and the cop was like essentially telling him what happened and what he had heard. And it was all very gruesome, very like creepy, like this is a horror movie type of scenario. Yeah. And there's a few articles about like how the guy got caught and the victim, that last victim, but not a peep since. Like he hasn't gone to trial yet that I'm aware of. Maybe he got out. Well, and what's weird too about that one is like a week or two after he was arrested, they were like investigating his house, and like supposedly they hit a tripwire and the house burned down. Damn. Yeah. So like you think about like that stuff, like, when most like serial killers around this time were arrested, like it was like front page news. Like the day it happened, they're talking about, and maybe there's just more like lawsuits that come from this stuff. So like these serial killers who get arrested, they're like, what's it called where you badmouth somebody in the press? Slander. Yeah. No, didn't it start with like a D? Libel. Yeah, you libeled me. And so then they sue them and make a bunch of money. I mean, it's not libel if it's true. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, like if a newspaper's like, hey, this guy allegedly ate 20 people and, like cooked them up and made 20-person stew. He didn't make soup for 20 people. He made soup with 20 people. But since you say allegedly, it's okay. Yeah. You say allegedly. But, and like, what was the other big national news that I didn't hear much more else was like that guy who had like 5 or 6 women chained up in his basement, like in Ohio somewhere. You know what? I think a lot of it just has to do with the fact that like in the 24-hour news, like in this 24-hour news cycle,
Like things just come and go so fast.
I mean, if you had like a John Wayne Gacy, this guy Berdella, a Ted Bundy type of like person show up, especially somebody like Berdella, it sounds like he ate some of the victims and stuff. Like if you had that, like if that story a couple hours south of me is true, that would be national news, I think, for months. Like you would have every podcaster doing a true crime story on it.
Well, see, I'm sure that there's been tons of true crime episodes on Mr. Berdella, and so we're gonna give them the fuel to be like, hey, you guys should check Shawn's yard and see if there's a body in it.
Come out with a bone detector.
You're gonna come out of your house tomorrow morning and be like, my front yard's full of podcasters.
All of them want me to be on their show, Richard. I've made it. So where are the bodies, Shawn? What do you mean?
You did it, didn't you? At this point, maybe, you know what? That would be good promotion for the show. Just bury a body in your yard. And then all the true crime podcasters would show up.
There's a guy who...
And then I could guest, and then like we could double team and just guest host on 50 true crime podcasts.
There's a guy who he talks about, he wants to create a true crime podcast about a true crime podcast serial killer who kills other true crime podcasters.
There can be only one.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah, like Highlander.
Yeah, and there are so many bad, like we're not, like, we're kind of like touching like this guy here. It's like the basis of it just because you're trying to freak me out, which is working. But I guarantee you there's like a very bad true crime podcast about this guy that is just reading the Wikipedia page. Like no research,
probably
nothing.
Probably 100%. I'm sure that's there. So that's what I have for you. I have a story that you potentially have bodies buried in your yard, and there's a very good possibility that you're living near a serial killer or a serial killer's dumping ground or both.
Oh man, what if my wife's a serial killer?
Maybe that's why she wanted the house. So
Could
that
be.
way she's got like woods and stuff to bury people in. That's
she
why
was
she's
already
like
dropping them there.
She's like, look at all this ground. Good ground. Soft ground.
Ground that's easy to dig in. Ground that's easy to cover. This will be my land of bones. Like, oh yeah, this will be our bone land. That's not what I said, Shawn.
In your house, Shawn?
There is lots of room. There's a crawl space too. Although to get to the crawl space, it's
is there a locked
small
room? You should check and see. Like maybe there's like pictures, like mementos that are taped up on the wall. Or
there's Tiff's makeup room that I'm not allowed to go in ever. And if I do, like if I try the door, she gets mad and she yells.
Yeah,
and I don't want Tiffany to get angry. Yeah, and then she has that weird laugh, like. She's always buying new knife sets off of Amazon. I don't know why. Like, we don't go to that many weddings, Richard. I don't know why she's getting those.
I'm gonna go through duct tape like water. Zip ties.
Oh man, so many zip ties.
House is lousy with zip ties.
She always gets me new clothes too. They look like they're used, but she says they're brand new. But I don't know. I just wash them. She always says I got to bleach them first.
Yeah, that makes sense. Stay clean.
She did make this stew the other night that tasted a little gamey. I'm not sure what it was, but
if you have developed a taste for human meat, that means I have to put you down.
I didn't say I was eating human meat.
Well, hypothetically, if it's human meat, that means I have to put you down. That means you have a taste for it.
Tiffany said she was making her famous Homo sapien soup.
What story do you have for me, Shawn?
All right, Richard. So you had mentioned you were going to look for cults, so I kind of poked around. But this story popped up. There was a YouTuber that said he was in the Appalachian Mountains. And he said that he is looking for, and as you know, a good YouTuber, he had found some as well. But have you ever heard of feral humans in the Smoky Mountains?
Feral humans, like the hills have eyes?
Yeah. So,
ooh.
Yeah, this article comes from the Smokies.com. So, Dennis Martin was 6 years old in June of 1969. It was Father's Day weekend, and they hiked near the Tennessee-North Carolina border, a Martin family tradition. William Martin, his father, and Clyde,
North
his
Carolina
grandfather.
Border. So that's like southeast of here. Okay.
It's a trip.
I guess I'm just trying to get the head, like geographically in my head.
Yeah,
okay.
It's closer to you than it is me.
So they're going into the woods, into the mountains near Tennessee / North Carolina. Okay.
Yep. And the two boys started at a cove and hiked to Russell Field, where they camped overnight. Afterward, they made their way to Spence Field, where they met another family of young boys, also named Martin. It was late in the afternoon. The boys were enjoying each other's company. He was wearing a bright red shirt when he and his brother, along with the two boys they just met, planned a prank on the relaxing adults in the Spence Field area along the Appalachian Trail. The boys weren't especially sneaky with the prank. The goal was to hide behind the adults and pop out to surprise them. However, the adults knew what the boys were up to. They watched the three boys went away to sneak back through the brush. They watched as 6-year-old Dennis, then that bright red shirt, snuck off in each direction, and for all intents and purposes, off the face of the earth. Richard, one of them, disappeared. Dennis Martin.
Oh no.
Yeah, so they go around, they're looking all over, but then there's a massive storm that had drenched the mountains and temperatures got into the 50s. They kept searching and searching for this young boy, never to find him.
Okay, so is the insinuation that the Weird Hill people kidnapped him?
Yeah,
and
I'm
made
trying to
him
get to
one of their own, or did they kidnap
one
him?
of us? One of us. Well, in the YouTube video I watched, he said that the feral people talk in clicks. They don't have like a spoken language, so it's like.
See, I would think, okay, that makes sense, but why would they speak in clicks? Like, why couldn't they just have like their own language? I watched this really stupid movie a long time ago that had. No, I don't want to bring it up because then my wife's gonna get mad at me.
Uh-oh.
It was a stupid movie. It was the stupid movie. Jodie Foster. So it was a stupid movie. Jodie Foster was in it. And
does she not like Jodie Foster?
No, I'm saying I thought it was stupid. It was this movie. Jodie Foster was in it, and she had she lived out in the woods, and she had this weird made up language, but she was not a cannibal, and she was not a weird hills have eyes hill person. So instantly, I do not believe the premise of this movie.
So yeah, the theory of feral humans in the Smoky Mountains. So over the years, this alleged account made it to the internet, where conspiracy theorists and other curious folks who formed wild theories about feral humans in the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. So the guy that did the YouTube video, he talked about the theory of how
hang on. Don't look at me like that. It was a dumb movie. Yes, it was Jodie Foster, right? Yeah, see, I was right. Jodie Foster was in it, and it was a dumb movie, and she had this weird made-up language. Didn't she have a weird made-up language? What was the name of the movie? It was Nell. Nell was the name of the movie. I knew as soon as I started talking about it, I'd hear her come in, and she'd look at me and she'd be like, "You son of a bitch, how dare you besmirch Jodie Foster in my home? My home!"
her ears perk up. It's like, somebody talking about Nell?
Yeah, that's what happened.
You know what you guys are watching tonight?
Yeah, I know what I'm watching tonight.
Yeah, she's like, you're going to fucking watch this movie. You sit here and watch this.
I'm gonna have to, yep. I'm going to be up until 4 o'clock in the morning watching the fucking weird Oomba Loomba fucking hill person Jodie Foster movie.
And it's going to finish, and you're going to be like, oh, thank God, it's time for bed. And she's like, no, I want to do something else. You're like, all right, well, at least it wasn't a waste of a night. And she pops in another DVD, and it's Nell 2. You're like, damn it.
They found her in the woods. Why'd they make another one?
This is the collector's edition, Richard. It's 7 hours long. So the one guy that was doing the YouTube video, he talked about the theory is that during the Depression, like a bunch of people were kind of just like, you know what, like screw all this. We're not hanging out here anymore. We're just going to go in the woods and live off the land, and end up becoming feral. Which I don't like. How many generations would it take for like humans to become like quote unquote feral?
I mean, I guess you'd have to what do we consider to be a feral human? Just somebody that like kills and eats people? Because you don't really need. I don't feel like you need to be. I don't feel like it's a generational thing because I mean, I just got done talking about a guy that was doing that now.
True,
and he lived in the world with people.
And I saw Blue Lagoon. I mean, those kids were on that island all by themselves, and they weren't eating anybody. Although, weren't there people on the island that ate people?
Fuck, I don't remember. I don't remember Blue Lagoon.
My mom loved.
But I guess I'm saying like I don't think that it needs to be. I don't think that I don't think that the inbreeding and isolation is a necessary component for cannibalism. I guess is my point. Because I mean, we have cannibals now, and they have parents, and they go to work and pay taxes
and hide bodies in their backyard. And have secret rooms in their house that they don't let anybody.
In the backyard.
Yeah, just the non-tasty parts. Yeah.
So I don't think it needs to be like a generational thing. I think it just, I think necessity would dictate your ability to become quote unquote feral.
Yeah, well, and like you think about how like big those woods are, like the Appalachian Mountains, like people could hide in areas for like ever. And so it may just be something that maybe they don't like quote unquote eat people, but if somebody gets too close and they don't want their stuff to get like
how did Dolly Parton survive? How did Dolly Parton manage to get out? Because she grew up in the Smoky Mountains.
Yeah, but and
then she came down from the Smoky Mountains. But like charmed all our hearts.
Yeah, because it's like the song Fancy. Like some guy came and saw that she had a really good singing voice. And it's like, I want to give you a record deal, get my limousine. And then her mom's like, here's your one chance, Fancy. Don't let me down. And so she went to the city and became a famous singer. Isn't that what that song is about?
That makes sense. I don't know.
Okay. Here's your one chance, Fancy. Don't let me down.
Let me down.
But so apparently, also there's been stories about different like FBI and Vietnam Green Berets during this time going into these woods, and some of the popular theories is that they were doing this to hunt the feral population.
Oh God! See, now that right there. That's a premise for a fucking movie. Like
Isn't
it? because you have like, let's say, so they call them like tunnel rats. These guys that would like in Vietnam, because you know how like in Vietnam they had like the North Vietnamese army had like all those underground tunnel systems and stuff like that. So what they would do. What the U.S. Army would do is they would give a guy a handgun and a flashlight, and they'd be like, okay, you crawl around in this tunnel, and if you see anybody that's a bad guy, then you shoot him.
Yeah. Well, how do I get out if I shoot him? Well, you got to crawl backwards.
Yeah. Well, how do I know there isn't somebody going to come behind me? I'm like, well, I don't know.
That's a good question. Well, are there booby traps? Yeah, probably. Lots of them. Yeah, my mom.
Okay, so you know that like that would probably like has to fuck with your head so hard, right? So imagine some dude that is like whacked out. Probably there's some definitely some PTSD involved, and he just can't like let it go, and so he goes off into the fucking Smoky Mountains because he's gonna, his in his mind, he's like, I'll just isolate myself. But then he finds crazy hill folk. So then it's crazy hill folk versus the, crazy, war vet.
Well, yeah, I think they bring him back and they send him into these woods. It's like, yeah, we need you to hunt down these terrorists, and they get there and
Freddy versus Jason.
Yeah. My mom actually, she worked at a restaurant across the river, and she had a couple because this would have been like mid 80s when she worked there. So this would have been, because Vietnam War ended in 76, 77.
Yeah.
So a lot of these guys that would come in and eat would have been right out of that. And she said a couple of them were tunnel rats, and talked a little bit about what they saw and what happened.
My mom also did the same thing, worked at a restaurant, and she said whenever she could always tell where there were if there were Vietnam vets, because she said that they would come in and they would always sit in booths, but they would always sit in a booth where they could have their back up, straight up and up against a wall, and they would constantly watch the door.
I've heard that. Yeah, and you wonder why there were so many crazy serial killers in the 80s.
Well, because they were all, Shawn, I can tell you exactly why. It's because they were all listening to Unskinny Bop.
True. They're all playing D&D, listening to Poison, and shouting at the devil.
Uh-huh. Yep.
But no, they talked about this, and it very much felt like you said, The Hills Have Eyes or Wrong Turn. And I mean, it wouldn't take much for anywhere out in the middle of somewhere for The Hills Have Eyes is a great example. Middle of the desert somewhere, just who's going to know? You just drop off the face of the earth. Because even now there's thousands of missing people a year, and everybody's just where'd they go? It's
Do you think that do you think if we actually made a concerted effort to try and find people like this, do you think we could find them? If we, sent up drones with I don't know, for thermal imaging cameras and stuff like that, to pick up heat signatures.
Probably.
Nobody's done it.
You could probably spend I'd like to think that the U.S. government can probably find anybody they want to at any point in time, just with all the different technology they have. But I mean, there's people that go missing, like I said, and there's criminals that they can't find. So, China, on the other hand, I mean, they got their stuff, so they can literally find anybody anywhere they want.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I'm sure if you people have spent millions and millions of dollars trying to find a Bigfoot, and they haven't. So does that mean Bigfoot's not real, or that they're not spending enough money?
Just that we haven't put enough money into it.
Yeah.
So are you equating the crazy hill people with Bigfoot?
We probably have just as much proof. I would buy more that there are crazy hill people than I would a Bigfoot.
I agree.
Because I mean, there's parts of the world where there's tribes that have never seen modern stuff, and we've already made the decision to leave them alone.
Yeah.
There's that one island where some dude's no, I'm gonna go because everybody likes me and I'm cool, and he goes over there and they're they've accepted me, then they ate him.
Yep. And
they didn't hide his body. They're out on the beach barbecuing. It was like a holiday.
Mm-hmm. They straight they wicker manned him.
Yeah. And boats came by and they're holding up
do you want
a rib? You want a rib or a femur?
Not the bees. Ah!
That's the question there too. If you were able to find where a feral tribe was, I don't know if you call them a tribe, a feral group, would you think that it would be would you leave them alone and quarantine them like they do those islands?
Yes, I would leave them alone.
You don't think you should try to bring them into society?
No, Shawn, I'm not a colonizer. Let them live their lives.
But if they're going around killing people,
well, they're not. They're not going around killing people. If you tell people hey, if you go in those woods, there's crazy hill people that are gonna stab you in the face and then cook you and serve you as a pate to their friends. and you go into those woods, who's at fault? Who's at fault?
I can't put that like sign on my door in my house and say, "Hey, don't come in here. I'm going to eat you." Like, it doesn't matter if I put that sign out. It's still not legal. It's still not okay.
I mean, I guess okay. So, I mean, the question is are they subject to legality?
Are we talking about the feral people or the island people?
The feral people, both, I guess.
The island people, I'd say less, because I don't think that's like a sovereign country. Like, it's its own thing left alone. Like, all countries have kind of been like, yeah, we're leaving those people alone. But if you're in like the Appalachian Mountains, I would think so. I would think you'd be subject to laws.
I mean, I'm sure you are. I guess it's just, should you be at that point? I mean, you've completely disconnected from any sort of society.
Yeah, I don't know.
You're not, like you're not taking anything from people around you, and obviously you're not giving anything to the people around you. Like you're existing in an isolated world, far removed from any place people do and probably should go. I mean, if two hikers are walking along and they get killed and eaten by crazy hill people, and we find out that it's crazy hill people, should we go in and arrest them? Yeah, probably, because, that's dangerous. Can't have crazy hill people running around eating people.
But yeah.
But if there's a crazy hill person that, just lives his life and doesn't kill and eat anybody, but he's violent towards people that are around, well, then I don't know.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't know if I have an answer, or like if I can really. It's very conflicting to me, if I'm being honest.
Is it because you want to be a crazy hill person?
I wouldn't.
Do you feel
mind.
like you're becoming? Are you becoming a crazy hill person?
No,
Shawn,
I wouldn't.
I think we're strengthening the case that there are bodies in your yard.
True. So if there's body in my yard, are you going to come and arrest me, Richard? I have a sign on my door that says,
not personally.
I have a sign on my door that says, if you step foot on my...
guys, I know him. Easy, boy, easy.
Yeah, just...
Friends.
Well, I say, I've got a sign on my door that says, if you step foot on this property, I will turn you into stew, so... Who knew a sign would make cannibalism legal? Well, as most Brolloweens go, I'm a little frightened, quite a bit scared, and now I don't want to walk in my woods at all. So, Richard, you've successfully frightened me for another Brolloween. So with that...
I tried my best.
So with that note, do you have any Richard's closing thoughts?
I did want to tell you one more thing. I wanted to tell you it's probably a little bit, it's a little bit farther from you. But there is Fort Leonard Wood is also known as Bloodland.
That's the big army thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bloodland?
Fantastic story is apparently circulated among military personnel stationed at Fort Leonard Wood over the years. Holds that the Bloodland area of the sprawling army post is haunted by ghosts. Traces back to an incident that occurred shortly after the fort was completed in the early 1940s when a soldier got drunk on guard duty, claimed that he had been kidnapped by ghosts and forced to drink hard cider through a straw. Other soldiers reported being taken hostage in similar fashion, and in each case the kidnapping was attributed to the ghosts of former residents of the small community of Bloodland who, upset over being forced off their land when the fort was constructed, still haunt the area. So there's that. There's ghosts on their base.
Yeah, there is a Bloodland, Missouri that was the name of the town, and it was destroyed to make the fort.
Yes.
I bet it was Bloodland, Missouri because it was all Feral Hill people.
Plus, I mean, like, I feel like if you are destroying a town and it's called Bloodland,
yeah,
I feel like
for
you're
something.
you're asking to create a poltergeist movie right where you live. You've brought that on yourself.
Agreed.
The call's coming from inside the Bloodland house.
My bad, guys.
But yes, there's cases of the ghosts of Bloodland taking their vengeance out on residents of the fort. So I guess don't go tour the base, because
I've known a couple people that
you could get kidnapped by crazy hill ghosts.
Yeah, I've known a few people that like have been there, and I've never heard any weird stories. But maybe they got to like keep that quiet.
Well, yeah, I mean, you don't want to go like professing that you destroyed a town in order to build your fort.
Yeah, and if you're in the army and you,
it's
like,
probably
do that,
the fort is probably sitting on top of the graves of those people that lived in that town.
True.
It's exactly like Poltergeist.
That's your movie. That's the other movie you can make. Poltergeist, but at an army base, and everybody's
you
worried.
Destroyed the town, but you didn't move the bodies.
And everybody's too worried to say anything, so they'll get Section 8 and they'll get kicked out of the army.
Yep. So there you go. So I tease, like, you will remember this, and you can bring it up. We can bring it up a year later. You've already set the agenda for next Brolloween.
I'm going to visit Bloodland, Missouri, and then you're going to visit the Appalachians and find the feral people.
Yeah. With a drone, because I'm not going in there.
That's lots of hiking. That's rough. I'm not really worried about the hill people. I'm just worried about having a heart attack.
I gotta have cell signal.
All right, well, let me do a little bit of housekeeping. Visit our website, we're at languageofbromance.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at languageofbro. Email us at bros@languageofbromance.com. And if you want to join our feral bromance group, join our patron like Wendy and Aaron,
who are not crazy hill people, despite what anyone would have you believe.
Yeah, Aaron does always ask me to come over. He's like, I got a tub full of ice.
I need to have you for dinner. Over for dinner.
Yeah. He's like, I want your liver. I'm like, huh? He's like, I want to have liver. I'm like, I don't like liver.
For dinner.
Your liver. Where's that at? Close.
I'll show
Very
you.
close.
Stab.
All right. Well, is there anything else before I close her out?
No, I'm good, sir.
All right. Well, that's all the Bromance have for this show. I'm Shawn.
And I'm Richard.
And remember, don't B-O-Y. B-O-Y. Not. I mean.
Why not?
Yeah. If you're feral.
And visit the crazy hill people.
Yeah. I mean,
why not dig a hole in Shawn's backyard and look for a body?
You know, the ultimate prank is you need to come over to my house and just dig a hole like somewhere in my woods.
How do you know I haven't done that already? I didn't do it.
Ah, you dug up my good body.